what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Is Joe Biden going to be the worst United States president in history?
We choose truth over facts.
Yes, to answer this question we would need to wait and see, because Biden is in office for just about 10 months. And in my opinion, he's not doing good at all so far. In fact, the real question is, will he last the full mandate? Or who's the real president? But at the same time, there are a lot of candidates for the worst US president in history, and people's opinions on this topic are divided. And sure, we would need to wait a few more decades and gain some distance in time to try and give a less biased answer to this question. At least wait for the Biden's presidency to end. But this is just a prediction based on what we've seen so far. So let's start with what would most Americans agree at, and that is the best presidents in US history. Of course, we would need to take in consideration at different time periods. You can only understand them in the context of era they worked in. You can't really judge people by moral standards of the present. Number one amongst the best presidents is the guy who led America through a civil war, Abraham Lincoln. He successfully waged a political struggle and a civil war that preserved the Union, ended slavery, and created the possibility of civil and social freedom for African Americans, extending the Constitution to all people of the United States, not just the white Americans. Number two would be one of the founding fathers and the first president of the United States, George Washington. General Washington led the colonial forces during the American Revolution to victory over British and became a national hero. He left office peacefully and great president of the time. Also, Thomas Jefferson opposed slavery. He was a very forward-thinking 18th century guy. We could also put John Adams in the top presidents list, second US president, and another founding father. Although he didn't do anything flashy or revolutionary, he was hardworking, relentless, principled, and worshipped the rule of law. You can say that JFK was okay, maybe a bit overrated. After all, engagement in the Vietnam begins with JFK, not with LBJ. You can argue that Henry Truman was okay president, but unleashing nuclear weapons against Japan. On the flip side, he presided over the end of World War II and the economic boom of the immediate post-war years. Of course, there are more presidents that are candidates for the upper rankings, and I would certainly not put Donald Trump or Barack Obama in that list. A Nobel Peace Prize, give me a break. I've heard recently that Bill Gates' biggest wish is to win a Nobel Prize for Peace. And he was a friend with Jeffrey Epstein because he wanted the Nobel Prize for Peace. That's just hilarious. But that's off topic now. Donald Trump and Barack Obama are better suited for the bottom of the list, in my opinion. Also George W. Bush, one of the worst presidents, recently trying to fix his public image, with Bill Clinton and Obama helping him. And it doesn't seem to work, judging to this viral video of Iraqi veteran.
Mr. Bush, when are you going to apologize for the million Iraqis that are dead because you lied? You lied about weapons of mass destruction, you lied about connections to 9/11. You lied about Iraq being a threat. You sent me to Iraq. You sent me to Iraq in 2003. My friends are dead. Joshua Castile. You killed people. You lied. You lied about WMDs. A million Iraqis are dead because you lied. My friends are dead because you lied. You need to apologize. Apologize.
So let's talk about the worst presidents. That's why you're here. And see if Joe Biden fits in the bottom of the list. LBJ, Lyndon Johnson, obviously Vietnam War. Although the war officially began in 1964 under LBJ, some historians argue that he was against it. Well, it started during his administration. So, also, that doesn't change the fact that he was terrible at it. Woodrow Wilson, one of the most hated presidents. A lot of people hate him because of involvement in World War I. But in my opinion, US needed to get involved. Much bigger problem is that he used the war as an excuse to severely cut the civil liberties. He had a department of censorship. I think Biden has those, and they are called the fact checkers. Also, he unconstitutionally imprisoned people who opposed the war. He nationalized multiple major industries and provoked a recession, all while portraying him as an ingenious technocrat, capable of managing the country better than the people or businesses or the Congress. And he was an open racist. Warren G. Harding, because of him, US never ratified the Treaty of Versailles and never joined the League of Nations. And it is possible to make a case that the United States' failure to join the League of Nations helped set the world on the path towards a World War II. Also, Great Depression, surely Harding is not solely responsible for this. Harding's administration was also one of the most scandal-ridden in US history. James Buchanan, 15th US president, also by many considered the worst United States president in history. He took no action to unite the country sharply divided over the issue of slavery and did nothing to stop the southern states from succeeding in the lead-up to the Civil War. Also, he was the president before Abraham Lincoln, arguably the best United States president in history. So, if Biden ends up being the worst and we learn from history, the US can hope for the best president after Biden, minus the Civil War, hopefully. In his inaugural address, Buchanan called the territorial issue of slavery happily a matter of but little practical importance. I know a lot of people would put Richard Nixon into worst presidents list because of Watergate and some other stuff, but a lot of people wouldn't agree. Slavoj Žižek, a popular Slovenian philosopher, doesn't think Nixon was one of the worst presidents.
Another surprise. I'm not so much opposed to Richard Nixon. I think some leftists told me, if you measure socialist left with how many, for the unemployed, students, healthcare and so on, you know that under Nixon, this healthcare, social, this was the high point. Then already Carter, because of economic crisis, had to reduce them and so on. And then he concluded peace with China and so on and so on. I think I never believed that Watergate story, two honest journalists can overthrow the most powerful person in the world,
And finally, Joe Biden, a marionette some would say. 10 months into his presidency and he already faces serious crises in economy, Afghan debacle, poor management of the pandemic and country more divided than ever. In both Saigon, Vietnam and Kabul, we saw chaotic scenes of evacuations of Americans and thousands of locals who worked with them trying desperately to board US military aircraft to escape imprisonment, torture and death. And in both cases, American trained and well-equipped militaries lost their will to fight when US forces departed. While Richard Nixon had no choice but to pull America out of Vietnam, President Joe Biden had the room to maneuver on Afghanistan. Yet he chose to follow his predecessor's path and end America's military presence there in a rush. General McKenzie, Mark Milley, and the Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin accused Biden he forced the troops from Afghanistan before evacuating all American citizens.
It's your testimony that you recommended 2,500 troops approximately stay in Afghanistan?
My assessment was back in the fall of 20, and it remained consistent throughout, that we should keep a steady state of 2,500, and it could bounce up to 3,500.
General McKenzie, do you share that assessment?
Senator, I do share that assessment.
Top military advisors warned against withdrawing on this timeline. They wanted you to keep about 2,500 troops.
No, they didn't. It was split. That wasn't true.
So no one told your military advisors did not tell you, no, we should just keep 2,500 troops.
No one said that to me that I can recall.
Are they throwing Joe Biden under the bus here? They are directly contradicting the commander-in-chief. Basic law of supply and demand is when government prints or borrows trillions of dollars, the value of the dollar goes down and the price rise. And that is called inflation. But according to Biden, when country prints or borrows trillions of dollars, the value of dollar doesn't decline and price decrease. So as inflation spikes to levels unseen in decades, Biden's solution is to pump the economy with trillions of dollars that the US doesn't have. And that is a recipe for disaster.
Prices rising at the fastest rate since 2008. Everything from washing machines up almost 30% to furniture up 11% and television sets up 8%.
I mean, he's not the first president doing this, but he's taking it to the next level. Luckily, some Democrats are at war with themselves over this Biden's economic agenda. I mean, the inflation is already at 15-year high. Vaccine mandate. I would describe this action by Biden more as a failure to gain the trust of the public to be vaccinated, and he had to use the force. If you want more people to get vaccinated, you need people to trust you. And they can't trust Biden because he was dishonest from the get-go. CDC says one thing, Biden says something totally opposite. Just a few months ago he said there will be no vaccine mandate.
No, I don't think it should be mandatory. I wouldn't demand to be mandatory.
It's a terrible move by Biden, and it's going to cause far more trouble than the good it can do. US is already facing shortages of healthcare workers, teachers, police and firefighters, and the vast majority of people that are not vaccinated are people of color and immigrants. And I'm not against vaccines, but against mandates. The biggest issue here is that the government is not going to give up this newly acquired power. And that is the main concern. They're going to find new ways to be able to force you to comply with some new mandates. And you'll be again obligated to show some kind of paper that you're compliant. They're not going to give out control once they have it. You can't do your job or move freely unless you do what they want you to do. It's going to be something like we already have in China, and that is social credit score. I know this sounds crazy to some of you, but vaccine mandates sounded impossible just 3 or 4 months ago. Also, by now, no one can dispute that Joe Biden is in cognitive decline. I mean, it's not Joe Biden's fault, he's 78 years old. But you don't run for president if you're not mentally able to. I really don't think he'll be able to run a full mandate. And the odds are Kamala Harris will jump in. I hope some of you are not enraged by some choices made here. But if you are enraged by my prediction for Biden, then please tell me where you think I was wrong. I would love to hear your thoughts. Who are the worst and the best US presidents in history in your opinion? And why? Please leave a comment down in the comment section and I will reply. Thank you for watching and see you soon.